offenders register for 5 years. Police say, well, he's had a 6-day head start, but they're working urgently to close the gap and establish his whereabouts. They released an image of him and body-worn footage from an arrest in September this year. By the way, we understand too about this individual, this man from Algeria, Mr. Sheriff, that once they entered the UK legally on a visit visa in 2019, it seems that that visa ran out at the beginning of February 2020. We understand that an automatic probable overstayer case was created on the 6th of February 2020, and that the individual is in the initial stages of the deportation process. Now, I know a lot happened in 2020. Not surprisingly, the government was focused on other matters during those few years. But isn't it astonishing that someone for whom an overstayer case was created more than 5 years ago, who committed an offence of indecent exposure and was sentenced to time in prison, from which he was accidentally released only a few days ago, is still in the country, still here, overstayed his visa, apparently, committed an offence for which he was imprisoned, and we're told, we understand, he is in the initial stages of the deportation process. Wow. More details after the news at 5. Steve is in Hope Cove in Devon. We need a lot of hope at the moment. Steve, hi.
We do, don't we? Hi there, how are you?
Yeah, good, sir. Your thoughts on Mr. Ferdinand's departure?
Well, yeah, I kind of came in on the tail end of one of your previous callers, actually. It was talking about the wastage and, obviously, paying our taxes. And I just had a story from about 10 years ago when I worked for one of the largest IT global retailers. We sold these sort of large bits of server equipment, these huge racks full of servers, basically. And a fully populated one with about £1 million. And at the time I sold it to an NHS trust in the north, which I can't remember which one it was. And as part of that, we'd sell it and then obviously I'd follow up and say, right, professional services wise, we want to figure it to help you out. And that just fell on deaf ears again and again and again. And eventually, about 11, 12 months later, I got hold of someone who said, we never used that in the end. It's just sitting in a cupboard upstairs. We're probably not going to deploy it. We haven't got any plans for it at the moment. And when I put it on it was basically budget sign-off. Story passing my desk. How many millions of pounds have we sold across other NHS trusts? That's absolutely wasted. Just a bit near quota.
And remind us again, Steve, how much did they spend on this bit of equipment?
Millions.
And it's just collecting dust somewhere.
Just collecting. I mean, and it's IT as well. This stuff goes obsolete and out of date, relatively quickly. It's got a lifespan. If you're not using it in years 1 and 2, you pretty much, sweated your 3 years. It's finished.
So can I just again, Steve, remind me? The Chancellor stood up yesterday morning to say we've all got to do our bit in paying for the public sector by increasing taxes in a way that they, it seems likely, promised they weren't going to do. Well, is it wrong to ask the question, can you do your bit, please, in re-engineering the public sector not to commit waste on this scale?
It's such an old story, is my problem with it. It's been going on for decades, and it's like, someone needs to grab it on the money and say, this is a company, this is a company, it's all of it.
Yeah. You're right. All the time. It's not going to be the first, it won't be the last. Lots of places waste money. It's sort of part and parcel of it. That happens. But at a time when these services are also not producing what the public needs to produce in a lot of cases, and more money is being thrown away, you can see why people are starting to raise eyebrows.
Yeah, and also the stories we saw during the It just goes on and on and on.
And someone's got to do something about it, particularly if they're asking for more money. Thank you for the call. Alex is in Lewisham. Alex.
Much about economics, but the reality of it is, and I think Rachel Reese spoke about it today.
Why do you suppose that?
Well, I've followed his career, and I know a lot about him, and I'm pretty clear he doesn't know what I'm about, which is Rachel Reese said that much of the public tax take that comes in is actually spent on servicing the debt. That's where a lot of the money is. All these stories that we've been hearing for 25, 30 years on right-wing radio about wastage in the system, it's also Nick Ferrari, I'm afraid to say. The reality of it is we're paying off a hell of a lot of debt that was approved during COVID, what's been approved during for the Ukraine war and all the other things. You know, I think that's where the majority of the money is going. The idea of this in the system, like, you know, and I mean billions to the point that's going to make a difference. You know, 5 billion here, 5 billion there. In the grand scheme of things, is not a great deal of money.
Let's not bother with it then.
I'm not saying let's not bother with it. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, I often hear you say that. I'm quoting your own words back at you.
No, I'm not saying... No, sorry, Alex. I've never said let's not bother with it. I think absolutely we need to bother with it because it fundamentally erodes trust in a system that people are paying for. And of course, you're right. Government is spending a huge amount of money on servicing the interest of the debt. So why then did a Chancellor aware of that borrow £30 billion more at the last budget?
I have absolutely no idea, actually.
So, here we go again. So here we go again. There's more piling onto a problem that you say is having a deleterious effect on the UK economy, meaning more taxes have to rise in order to pay for more public services that don't seem to be delivering. But Alex, there is a way out of this, or at least a partial fix to this. Nothing's going to be the perfect way out. And again, terrible thing to... Maybe we could think about running the economy. Maybe we could think about increasing GDP per capita rather than just GDP. Maybe there needs to be a heck of a lot of effort put into allowing businesses to grow, finding ways of funding them, getting capital moving, getting IPOs listed on the London Stock Exchange rather more than they are, taking some risks and using the funds that are there.
Yeah, can I... Oh, I'm still on. I absolutely agree. I also just want to say, though, the ABC, austerity, Brexit, COVID, Brexit, all the things you just spoke about, Brexit is the biggest reason why that stuff isn't happening. And until we grapple with that, and we're honest in the right media about that, it's going to continue happening.
Well, listen, Alex, I agree, honesty is absolutely critical. I didn't vote for Brexit because I thought it was a bad idea. It has been a bad idea. It's not worked. Even Nigel Farage says that Brexit has failed. So I agree with you. Of course it's had a bad effect on the economy. Of course it has. But I'm afraid the Chancellor of the Exchequer, who's been in for 16, 18 months, cannot just blithely say ABC as the reason why this country has problems. Not to skip ahead in the alphabet, but it's her, Rachel. That's part of the problem. Alex, thank you very much indeed for the call. You're listening to Tom Swarbrick on LBC. In the next 60 minutes... Dance floor filler and climate activist Mr. Sean Paul on the show to highlight what it is Jamaica needs for its recovery and whether the COP Climate Summit achieves anything. Also...
Employers have the opportunity to engage people at the very moment that they come into work and then throughout the course of their career.
More than 9 million working-age adults are economically inactive at a cost to employers of some £85 billion a year. What more can be done to help them back into work? And...
Get a grip, man! I know I'm the Justice Secretary, that's why I'm at the dispatch box, also as Deputy Prime Minister.
Breakout Britain wonders whether David Lammy is giving advice to himself there, as it's revealed that 2 more offenders from the same prison have been wrongly released, inspiring manhunts across Surrey and London. After 5, why does this keep on happening?
On your radio, on the LBC app, and...
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
Global newsroom at 5 o'clock. Police are hunting a foreign prisoner who was wrongly freed from jail last week, days after tighter checks were introduced. The Nigerian national was released from HMP Wandsworth 5 days after sex offender Hadesh Kabatu was mistakenly let out in Essex. LBC's Helen Hoddinott has more.
The Met confirmed that this prisoner was released in error a week ago. The 24-year-old who previously committed sexual offences is still at large and a police hunt is now underway, but the Met says the force was only informed yesterday that the mistaken release had happened.
Policing commentator Graham Wetton says the delay in reporting the release creates problems for the search.
It's a huge task for the police to try and track him from the day he was released. You've got to go into places and try and get 7 days worth of possibly CCTV footage if the police have kept them that long. Speaking to maybe bus drivers, taxi drivers, etc. A huge task for police to pick up the thread.
The Justice Secretary was repeatedly asked about the mistaken release of asylum seekers when he stood in for Sir Keir Starmer, Prime Minister's questions. Brahim Kador Sharif is not an asylum seeker, but is due to be deported for overstaying a visitor's visa. It's been revealed HMP Wandsworth also released a convicted fraudster by mistake on Monday. 35-year-old William Smith had only been sentenced that day. The father of the Southport attacker says he didn't confront his son when he bought a machete because he was scared he would fly into a rage. He's told an inquiry into the murders of 3 young girls at the resort last year that Axel Rudakabana would throw things at him in anger. Donald Trump has suggested the US government shutdown could have been to blame for a Democrat winning the New York mayoral race. Some American services are on hold because Congress hasn't agreed federal funding. Newly elected Zoran Mamdani describes himself as the president's nightmare. Speaking at the White House, Mr. Trump largely ignored the result but did make this comment.
I think if you read the pollsters, the shutdown was a big factor, negative for the Republicans. And they say that I wasn't on the ballot was the biggest factor. But I don't know about that, but I was honored that they said that.
In the city, the FTSE 100 closed up 62 points at 97.77. The pound buys $1.30 and €1.14. The LBC weather, patchy rain in the north and west tonight, dry and clear elsewhere, breezy with a low of 10 degrees. That rain continuing in the north and west tomorrow, bright spells and showers elsewhere, and a high of 17 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Tim Humphrey.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Tom Swarbrick.
Good afternoon to you. 4 minutes past 5 the time. Tom Swarbrick here on LBC. Listen,
Can he reassure the House no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Get a grip, man!
get a grip, the Deputy Prime Minister says at PMQs, as it's revealed that there are indeed a number of other people who have been accidentally released from the same prison. HMP Wandsworth have released 2 people, Mr. William Smith, who was sentenced to 45 months for multiple fraud offences at Croydon Crown Court on the same day he was released, and a man from Algeria convicted of indecent exposure who is also wanted for deportation. Helen Hoddenott is LBC's reporter at HMP Wandsworth. Run us through this sorry tale, Helen.
Tom, darkness has fallen on Wandsworth Prison after a troubled day for the establishment. This afternoon we learnt that a week ago today an Algerian inmate, Brahim Kador Sharif, walked out of these gates into the community despite being only partway through his sentence into this residential area with homes and businesses right next to the high walls of the prison. The Met has said today that he was released in error last Wednesday, but they were only told about it by the prison service yesterday. As you say, the 24-year-old is a registered sex offender. He was convicted in November last year of indecent exposure and was sentenced to an 18-month community order. We're told he's not an asylum seeker, but had overstayed his visa after arriving in the UK as a visitor in 2019 and is in the initial stages of the deportation process. Police say urgent inquiries are now underway. He's known to have links to Tower Hamlets and the Westminster area in London. The officers acknowledge that Mr. Sharif has a 6-day head start on them. It's not clear just yet why there was nearly a week's delay between his mistaken release and the prison service telling the police, but it means that a sex offender has been at large today. It is unnerving for the community here. Casey lives next to the prison and told me how the news has made her feel.
It's quite shocking. Like, I don't understand how something like that can happen. How does someone get mistakenly released? And it is concerning. So obviously I'm walking by myself at night around the area. I have a dog, so I'm often like walking out with him at night when it gets dark at like 5 p.m. I don't understand with all the processes and protocols in place how someone can be mistakenly released. It's very surprising.
But Tom, that is not it for the wrongly released prisoners from Wandsworth Prison And today it's been revealed another inmate, 35-year-old William Smith, who also goes by Billy, was let out on Monday this week. But this same day that he was sentenced to 45 months behind bars for multiple fraud offences, Surrey police are now looking for him. He's described as white, bald and clean-shaven with links to Surrey.
And thank you very much indeed. Helen Hollernott, LBC reporter, live for us at HMP Wandsworth. I honestly do not know how someone who is sentenced to 45 months in prison is then accidentally released. Let's get some more details. Vanessa Frake is a former governor of Wormwood Scrubs Prison, the author of the book The Governor, and is now Reform UK's Justice Advisor. Before I come on to the potential politics around all this, Vanessa, as a former governor of a big prison, how on earth is someone who is convicted that day of offence worthy of being sentenced to prison accidentally released?
I'm not going to make excuses for the prison service or the court service, but what can happen is that the prisoner gets convicted at the court liaises with the prison, and between them they work out the sentence calculation. Clearly this has gone badly wrong in this case.
So the sentence calculation is worked out, so the court says about it's 45 months in prison. You're passed over to someone from the prison who takes you to the prison, and they look at the sentence, and unless someone said 45 minutes rather than 45 months, you should be behind bars.
Absolutely, don't disagree. Of course, it does depend on how much he has done on remand previous to that sentence. So clearly, to me, that is the error. But you know, Tom, sentence calculations now are very complicated. I'm not making excuses for them, but they are incredibly complicated since this government has brought in the release earlier, the 30%, the 40%, no longer the 50%. That's not an excuse, but don't say.
Vanessa, sorry, so he gets 45 months, depending on whether he's been held in remand, some is taken off, then 30% or 40% is applied based on whether he's a foreign national offender or whether he's likely to be deported. That is all worked out in the sentencing, and then you take it to prison to serve that time.
It's worked out between... the court must have thought that he was due for release. Otherwise, they would have just taken him straight to prison. But clearly the breakdown is the communication between the courts and the prison as to why the prison told the court, no, you can release him at court. Right. That's the only explanation that I can think of, Tom. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not excusing it. It's absolutely abominable. I can't express my sadness, disappointment at the lack of adhering to the prison service mantra of keeping those in custody sentenced by the courts to protect the public. I cannot get away from that. This is endemic of our prison service at the moment, and those that don't see that are whether it's this government, the last government, or whatever. Nothing has been done to sort this. You know, we've had 130% rise in releasing errors over the last 12 months, but nobody bothered to question it, Tom. Nobody said suddenly, why was the prison service released 262 prisoners in error compared with 150 the year before?
Can I ask you about the other person who's been accidentally released, Brahim Kador Cherif? We understand that he was due for deportation, having overstayed his visa, and a case created on that matter on the 6th of February 2020. Now, again, there was a lot going on in this country during 2020, but how is it possible for someone to not have been deported over a period of 5 years for overstaying their visa?
You've heard of the CHR, Tom, and human rights lawyers. This is what they do. They we've got 10,500 prisoners who are foreign nationals who should not be in this country in prison.
And is that what you saw as a governor of a prison? You saw people attempted to be deported back to the countries that they came from, and they were stopped?
Yes, absolutely. Human rights lawyers get involved. They start quoting don't understand where they're going to. Countries that they do belong to won't take them. It's a long, drawn-out process.
We don't know that the ECHR was a potential blocker in this particular case, but there are a lot of foreign national offenders in British prisons at the moment. What are some of the checks that should be increased then in order to try and get a grip of this?
Well, look, you know, David Lammy stood in Parliament last week and said he's written this 5-page document of checks that are going to stop all of this. Well, clearly that didn't work. In this case, in the case in
so
court,
what would you do differently? What are the checks that need to happen?
So
give me three.
Better vetting, better staff supervision, better training, decrease the amount of prisoners that we've got in custody. But this all causes strain on the prison service. Unless you walk those mountains, Tom, you're not going to understand. Trust me, when you've got 2 prison officers looking after 200 prisoners, it's very, very strange for the prison staff. And it's the prison staff that we blame on this. We already had one prison officer suspended when there was clearly a catalogue of errors for Habib, whatever his name was, last week.
Vanessa, thank you very much, Steve, for coming on. Vanessa Frey is the former governor of Wilmot Scrubs, was the author of the book The Governor, now reformed UK's Justice Advisor. We had David Lammy announce the strictest checks for the release of prisoners in order to stop this from happening again. That was the day of, or a day before. These prisoners were accidentally released, including one who was released last Wednesday of our accident. The police only informed of that on Monday. So that's quite a head start that this Brahim Kadri has in evading the police. Meanwhile, when it comes to people coming in, there's an Iranian bloke who's managed to come back into Britain to claim asylum despite having been booted in as part of the booted out as part of the one-out scheme. So we can't keep out the people we don't want in, and we can't keep in the people we don't want out. How well is this going? And by the way, this early release of prisoners, I would argue, is not a crisis for this government. It isn't. This isn't a crisis. It's all over the news, it's everywhere, we all over the papers. It is not a crisis for this government, because prisoners are accidentally released from time to time. It has grown, it has increased, and that needs to be looked at. But in and of itself, the accidental release of a prisoner is not a crisis for the government. What is? The reason why, in part, this is top of the news agenda, the papers are going to be all over it, it's breaking on all the news. The reason why this is such a big deal is it because it adds to the narrative that Britain is broken. It is the release of 2 people, but it adds to the sense that nothing really works. And I can't help but feel that this is a little bit like I can't help but feel this is a little bit like when Joe Biden did that debate with Donald Trump and he couldn't finish a sentence, and his health was so clearly all over the place, and he was so clearly unwell and unfit that there was no way that Joe Biden was ever going to get out from underneath the narrative of this guy can't do it, he's not up for the job, look at what happened. So the reason why this is a crisis for the government now is because I just don't see a way in which the government is going to be able to get out from underneath the narrative of nothing works, everything's screwed, 2 more prisoners have been released today by accident, more problems in the NHS, the economy's failing, she hasn't come back for more taxes she wasn't going to raise. They are going to struggle massively to get out from underneath that. I honestly don't know how they do it. I don't know how they change things around sufficiently for the narrative Britain is broken to be washed away. That is why this is a problem. 03456060970. Come to your calls after this. 5:16 news headlines on LBC. Tim Humphrey.
A second foreign prisoner has been released by mistake. The man who listened to the silence was let go by HMP Wandsworth last week. The father, a Southport murderer, Axel Rudiger Barton, has told an inquiry he was frightened of his son's violent outbursts. 5 people have been injured on a French holiday island off the west coast, and a car was driven into people and cyclists. LBC weather, patchy rain in the north and west tonight, drying elsewhere, with a low of 10 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. The Alekii on the M25 clockwise. There's a lane closed between junction 5 for the M26 and Clackett Lane services because the van has broken down. The A20 stays closed going out of town between Crittles Corner in Sidcup and the M25 at Swanley. That's because of an accident, so there are severe delays. It is slow in Brentwood on the A12 southbound. The exit slip road to the M25 Broad Street roundabout stays blocked because the car's broken down. There were queues on the North Circular going out of town. There's a lane closed on the Redbridge roundabout. That's because the van has broken down. It's slow in Bow. Devon's Road is partly blocked in both directions in Erdney Street. There was an accident earlier. And on the train, South Western Railway have delays and cancellations between Wimbledon and Epsom. That's because of a fault.
Tonight with Andrew Marr from 6 p.m.
Yes, it's happened again. Another foreign prisoner released from jail by mistake. But this is happening almost regularly, so why that? Plus, the election of a socialist mayor of New York. Is this the beginning of a general swing in the West against the populist right? Join me at 6.
Tonight with Andrew Marr from 6 p.m. Listen on our free Global Player app or the new LBC app.
At Amazon, over 50% of deliveries now come with less packaging or with no added packaging at all. It's a difference you'll notice on your doorstep, where you chat with friends, where your neighbour's daughter practices guitar, and where we deliver your new noise-cancelling headphones in the manufacturer's packaging. Much better. Reduced packaging from Amazon. We're delivering change where it matters, on your doorstep, based on 2024 UK and EU Amazon packaging data.
Call Tom Swarbrick 0345 6060 973 LBC.
There's some naughty folks out there in cyberspace, and it can be tough to tell a legit deal from a dodgy one. That's why you need Bitdefender, your very own digital heavyweight, working silently behind the scenes to keep you and your devices safe, whatever threats the web throws at you. Trusted by the experts, used by the pros.
Bitdefender, a global leader in cybersecurity. Trusted, always.
Verify now at bitdefender.com.
So, what's on your to-do list today? Why don't you check if you're eligible for pension credit? It tops up your pension income and also opens up help with heating bills, council tax and more. Search pension credit on gov.uk or call 0800 99 1234. There's nothing to lose. Check today. Pension credit. Credit where credit's due. Eligibility criteria apply.
Experience. It's knowing the difference between a good deal and a great deal. Right now, get 3 months free when you take out Saga Health Insurance. You get 24/7 GP access whenever you want it, and the freedom to choose your preferred private hospital with your own room should you need it. Search Saga Health Insurance for a quote today. New customer statement policy before the 27th of November. Pay by monthly direct debit for the first year. Terms and conditions apply. Over 50s only.
Leading Britain's conversation. Tom Swarbrick. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
5 the time, Tom Swarbrick on LBC. 2 more prisoners accidentally released from HMP Wandsworth. An Algerian man who was in there for indecent exposure, who should be booted out of the country some time ago because he overstayed his visa. He's been here 5 years without apparently needing to have a visa, or at least not having a visa to be here. Was released last Wednesday by accident. The police were alerted on Monday. So what happened between Wednesday and Monday that meant people in prison didn't realise that this bloke wasn't in the cell he was meant to be in. Meantime, there's a guy called William Smith who committed fraud to the point where he was needed to go to prison for 45 months. On the very day he was sentenced, he was accidentally released. In and of themselves, this does not constitute a crisis for this government, but taken when the big picture of nothing really works, how does the government get out from underneath this? James is in Hampstead. James. I'm very vexed.
Yes. This government is no longer, even after 15 months, fit for purpose, and I think the King should dissolve Parliament. Rational.
Why did you say the King's not going to do? Why do you think the government's sort of gone?
No doubt. When he said today in Parliament that prisoners were being early released, mistakenly released in 2021, we haven't heard of a mistakenly released prisoner until 2 weeks ago. Yeah. all of a sudden it's all over the press. Rachel Reeves hasn't got a clue with the economy. Miliband hasn't got a clue with energy. Lammy hasn't got a clue with justice. It's just an endless... It is honestly becoming a joke.
James, but the point that is interesting here, to me at least, is you're right. We hadn't heard about accidentally released prisoners to the extent that we've heard about them recently, even though it was happening. It was happening, I mean, depending on your view, quite a lot. There were at least 100, or if not more, people who were being accidentally released from prison per year. It's gone up a lot in the last year, but there we are. Why were we not hearing about it? Well, lots of different things were going on at the time. COVID, other political stories, difficulties for the government, there were chaos, Liz Truss, etc. The reason why you're hearing about it now, I would suggest, is one, there's more of it, and two, it feeds into the sense that people have that Britain is broken. It's another example of nothing's working. So how does the government, one, deal with the issue, substantive issue of, for God's sake, please can we not accidentally release prisoners early? That's up to them and they'll work with business to do that, etc. But two, how do they then get out from the narrative that says nothing works if every time a prisoner is released accidentally, it's leading the news?
Every thing now, I think, with everything is leading to a headline because we're fixing broken Britain, we're fixing this, we're fixing that, the foundations, everything else. And it's just not, you know, Lammy waved his sabre last week going, I'm going to make these changes that no one's going to be released, and not 2 days later it's happened. It's ridiculous. They make all these promises like their manifesto that was a complete lie, and unfortunately they're just not giving or telling the truth or giving people what they want or doing what people want.
The fix the foundations thing that Rachel Reeves said yesterday is just, to my ears, completely unbelievable. How can you fix the foundations of the economy, but you're lining everybody up to do the thing that you said you wouldn't do, not least because you'd fix the foundations of the economy?
I agree with you. It's just, everything is just a contradiction, I'll call it a lie or whatever, or a story, and nothing, they're saying that they're going to fix everything, and nothing is being fixed, and everything that is slightly like a prisoner being released is becoming the biggest news because people know that they're promising something and not delivering.
James, I appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. Is James right that the reason why you're hearing a lot more about this is it plays into a sense that Britain isn't working, the government came in promising change, they say they fixed the foundations of it, in this case the economy, they're coming back again to do a budget that they said they wouldn't do by raising a lot of taxes, particularly on working people. They promised change. What's changed? What's got better? And it's only been 16 or 18 months, but how long are we going to give it? Mo's in Newquén, Livingston. Mo.
But you're talking about the nation being broken, the economy broken. When Rachel Reeves renting out like £3,000 a month, I mean, is the bath made of gold? Is there a racehorse in the back of that? What the hell is going on? That we have politicians that have these kind of well, exactly. And that's the thing, because it all started, the cost of living, which she said, we have to sort out cost of living. The MPs, in my view, are responsible for the huge cost of living rise. Way back in, was it 97, when the Conservative government, before they left power, before Tony Blair, they decided to allocate houses to MPs. MPs were allowed to buy a house, all that flipping. And why? The reason was because and they had to carry all their books with them on the trains, and they couldn't keep them in their homes because hotels needed to be rented out for the weekends when they weren't living there. Likewise, so they needed. Well, why weren't they given student accommodation? Why weren't they given like a room and a shower lounge and a kitchen? Why does the constituency not own a home? And when the Labour, when the MP loses their position, they lose the home.
I've taken a deeply unpopular approach to this. So if you do...
Sorry. See, when the Scottish Parliament came into power, houses in Scotland rose in a year by 300%. just with not doing anything. Generally, house prices rose 300%. I personally, I'm just enraged by it all. And I'm just enraged. Then, of course, we have the thing about the expenses and everything. The MPs, they're telling us to plug up and all the rest of it. What their wages are astronomical.
Actually, can I just jump in there? I'm really sorry.
Please do correct me. I want to because...
No. I'm going to anger you. I'm going to anger you more. I'm afraid.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know what I should say to you, so I do worry that you're screaming at me, but actually do scream at me. Here's my view. I don't think MPs are paid enough. I would triple the amount that MPs are paid, but here's the payoff before you scream at me. They would not be allowed a second job. They would not be allowed to do any other work. They would be paid, let's go with £180,000 a year, but they wouldn't be allowed to work a second job. You have to focus the whole time on your job as an MP.
That amount of money incorporates the need to invoice to read bits and pieces because it's a huge amount of money, huge amount of information that every MP has to read. So to have people reading the stuff with them and telling them what's going on and what's maybe that's right. I don't know, but the house, no.
All right. No, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. They called for change. They said it was coming. The country seems to be going in the backwards direction. And so Keir Starmer's answer is... I'll back to pause in a few moments. 5:28. Let's get a business update. Chris Justin is here from Seven Investment Management. Man, tough day for Marks and Spencer. What on earth is going on?
Well, it's coming back to what we talked about in the last couple of months with cyber attacks, isn't it? So obviously, when they happen, we focus on what the impact on us is. So if it's a banking app that's down, it's the fact that we can't get access to our money and we can't send our money anywhere. If it's a food delivery, we're annoyed because we can't eat what we want to do that evening or that week. But the other side of it is the impact on the business. And Marks and Spencer, if you go back just over a year ago, they made £392 million in profit. But this year, that has been almost completely wiped out to only 3.4 million. That's a 99% fall. I know, it's absolutely extraordinary, this. But it was, as a recap, it was back in April that this ransomware attack then happened, and they did everything. I think they even contacted the CEO directly in order to try and extort him. But that meant empty shells, and online orders were suspended for nearly 2 months. Click and collect, if you use them, anyone's listening, you'll know that it was suspended for 4 months, and all of this clearly adds up. But to be fair, I think it's a mark of how resilient the actual business is. They still made a profit, even taking all this into consideration, because they missed most of the trading period. And actually shares today, and this is the extraordinary thing, on top of the actual 99% fall in profit, are marginally higher. They're 0.1% up. And I think it's a couple of things. Firstly, the fact they're still in the black despite missing the majority of the year, but also because originally I think they'd forecast around a £300 million hit. And I think, whilst this is still telephone numbers, it's extraordinary. I think the number will come in at about 140, 150 million, but they have had to claim over £100 million as well from insurance, something we're all always loath to do, aren't we, because it ends up impacting your premiums as a result. But no, this is the very, very real impact of cyber attacks on real life and real business.
As you say, completely extraordinary. Thank you very much indeed, Chris Justin from Seven Investment Management. You're listening to Tom Swarbrick on LBC. Coming Picking up the pieces from the storm that ripped through Jamaica, we'll speak to one of its most prized sons. Sean is on the programme for the 5:31 news headlines. Tim Humphrey.
Police are searching for 2 prisoners who've been wrongly freed from Wandsworth Prison in South London. Will Smith was released on Monday, while registered sex offender Brahim Kador Sharif was let out last week. The father of the Southport attacker says he was scared of it, but there was another side to him that he didn't know. Alphonse Rudy Gabbard was told inquiry into the deaths of 3 young girls in Southport the killer would fly into a rage. Flooding has left residents trapped in homes and cars in southwest Wales. A rest centre has been set up in Grange. Those who've been rescued. LBC weather, patchy rain in the north and continuing in the west tonight. Dry and clear elsewhere. Breezy with a low of 10 degrees.
Nick Murray at breakfast on LBC. A lot of what's schooling is currently providing doesn't really seem equipped for the modern age. Some major reviews and reforms could be on the way, as outlined now by Labour MP and Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson. The idea of helping children spot fake news. How are you going to bring this in?
It's not about politicians or any of us actually telling our children what to think. It's how we encourage them to be critical. We know that, there's a lot of stuff that gets pumped out on social media, and it's worrying for parents.
Elizabeth in Nottingham.
I would love to know how they are planning to fund these changes, specifically in the primary sector, because at the moment we haven't got enough money to even have teaching assistants.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Back tomorrow morning from 7. Listen on our free Global Player app or the new LBC app. LBC.
McDonald's. Get a cheeseburger or mayo chicken, medium fries, 4 McNuggets, and a medium soft drink. That's right, £5. £5 meal deal for nothing. Try another layer. Not available on delivery. Carbonated soft drink and beverages. Details in restaurants subject to availability. A safe trip begins with TRIP. Take a road trip with your family. Get there safely. Your trip takes. Drop up on island food. Rest every 2 hours too. Ice head, tire pressure and tread. Prepare for the weather ahead. A safe trip begins with
Think they're the fortune forever in life. National highways.
It's easy to forget just how crazy things have been over the past couple of years. Every day we wake up to something new. Tariffs and taxes on anything and everything. It's tempting to put your hands in your ears and go, la 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 la, I can't hear you, until it's all over. But you know what's the best response to crazy times? A plan for your money. And Quilter can help. Because let's face it, there's probably going to be some crazy times ahead too. Money needs a plan. Quilter. Pensions, investments, advice. Find out more at quilter.com.
Banning Dental Group clinics with over 5,000 top-rated Google reviews. Keep on smiling.
Amazon has increased funding for employees to £3,000 a year every year for career development. Like Juliet, she's now a trained technician. And to her, the sound of machinery in need of repair reminds her of how far she's come. In 2 years, she's landed her dream job, providing her with valuable skills. That's up to £3,000 every year for career development at Amazon. Eligibility conditions apply.
Tom's Walgreens. Call 0345 60 60 973. Text 84850. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
5:34 at the time. We'll talk about the price, certainly to employers, of worklessness. 9 million working age adults not in work at the moment. It comes at a cost to businesses. We'll talk about that cost in a moment. Joe's in Islington first on the accidental release now of 2 prisoners from HMP Wandsworth. Joe.
Ethan, Tom. So I've got 2 points that I'd like to make. So the first one of these is I've got a bit of a background in helping to digitise hospitals and working with the public sector. And the first thing when I heard this story was, in my head, I pictured the receptionist at this prison, and we probably think that there's a nice IT system that, they put their finger on and it scans their biometrics and it says, yes, this person can be released. Mm-hmm. But I actually guarantee you the reality is that most of these systems are paper-based still. Mm-hmm. And they are chaotic in the sense that I imagine that the Ministry of Justice system doesn't talk to the probation system, doesn't talk to the prison system. So the first point, I suppose, is that this is a chronic lack of investment that we're seeing, and this is partly to blame, I would imagine.
Absolutely, money counts. If you have lots of money, you should be able to do good things with it to improve the services. But I come back to the point, unfortunately, boringly, Joe, that I made in the last hour, which is the NHS has just been given £20 billion more at the last budget, and productivity levels in the NHS have fallen.
Oh no, but I agree with you in that respect. I always tell people the answer to the public sector is never just to throw more money at it. Often what happens, the problem is the public sector has a horrible track record of IT projects. You all know that they always go over budget, and there are other issues at work there. But when you actually look at a lot of these processes, for example, like how a prisoner is released, I guarantee you that if a private company, for example, is asked to build this system because they've got a profit incentive, that they would have a slick, efficient system in place in no time, because they have to, otherwise they're out of business. But in the public sector, the government often doesn't see the return on investment of these sorts of projects, so they just tend to never really happen until things start going wrong. And then if I can, the second point I wanted to raise as well is that partly what we're seeing here is that is successive governments who just love to tinker.
Yes.
And part of the issue here is that there are numerous early release schemes, numerous policies that these people are having to check. When these people are released, it's not as simple as this person's got 10 years, so they come out from 10 years to the day of their sentence. The government just constantly tinkers and complicates things rather than reform or reimagining of what should this be.
I don't think this is David Lammy's fault, by the way, but even in the announcing of we're going to create an inquiry to look at what new systems need to be in place, it's going to be chaired by this person, it's going to report back, blah, 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 blah. They kind of have to do that in a sense because that's what they've always done. I say they, politicians have always done. But I think Joe was right in saying that this is perhaps another example of the technocratic incrementalism that says it's going to change the country to get people, to get things to work better, and it isn't working. And it's not just Labour's fault, Tories as well. This kind of approach to, and the civil service, this approach to doing change isn't working.
I completely agree with you there. It's like I've always never understood why we have a system, for example, where, say someone gets sentenced to 10 years, everyone immediately goes, well, they'll go out in 5 years. Because there's this expectation that the sentences don't even mean what they say. It's kind of like
the sentence is more than just time in prison. The sentence is time on licence, etc., etc. Joe, I appreciate the call. Thank you very much indeed. 5:38 the time next.
Employers have the opportunity to engage people, but of course you also need the government to play a role to create the conditions where they're encouraged to do so.
More than 9 million working age adults are economically inactive at a cost to employers of some £85 billion a year. A report warning today of an economic inactivity crisis. Nick Tyrone is a research director at the Jobs Foundation. Thanks very much, Steve, for coming on the programme. I wonder what you make of what this report by Sir Charlie Mayfield shows about worklessness.
Yes, certainly. Well, it definitely it goes with the research that I've been doing myself around joblessness, around long-term sickness, around people on long-term benefits, long-term sickness benefits. And yes, I mean, one of the big things to say is that this jumped massively with COVID, and actually a lot of it isn't really necessarily physical health related, but mental health related. So that's very interesting that basically jumped with COVID. And it's never really returned to quote-unquote normal. And basically, it's really affordable. One of the things about people on long-term benefits, so if they're on long-term benefits and they're not in a job, obviously it's a bit of a double whammy for the Treasury because A, they're being paid benefits, and B, they're obviously not working and thus paying taxes. Another thing to probably mention right here is the jump in 16 to 34-year-olds claiming long-term sickness benefit. It's gone up quite massively since COVID, and that's a huge problem because what you have is there's a long tail to that, right? So if someone who is 18 is going to collect long-term sickness benefit, their chances of getting into the workplace at any point in their lives goes down massively, and therefore the chances of them being on benefits for their whole lives becomes much greater.
So what methods could the government or the employers employ in order to get people back in? I see that there's a story today that the French are prescribing working from home for various people. Not that you come out completely, but that you work from home.
I mean, fine. I mean, I think work from home is a useful thing when it works. I think it's better that people go into the office, generally speaking, but I understand that it would be better you get people working from home rather than being on long-term sickness benefit. That's obviously going to be better. I think the issue here really is, so in order to tackle this problem, the first thing that they have to do, which the main report does quite well, is we have to get the people who are on long-term sickness benefit who really do want to work. We do need to give them the support that they need. That's all great. We need to have employers who are willing to bend a little bit to take people who have been on long-term sickness benefits into payroll. But we probably also need, to be a little bit tougher on some of these benefits, if I'm being honest.
Tougher in what way, Nick?
Well, I think a lot of the stuff that's being talked about with face-to-face pit meetings, that kind of thing,
needs to happen tomorrow.
It needs to happen. I mean, it just does, because this is a huge drain on the Treasury. And I think people, what I want to do is talk to people across the political spectrum, because if you're on the centre left and you're saying, well, we want better public services and we want better this, then actually what you for other things rather than essentially paying for people who really could be.
Nick, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on. Nick Tyrone is Research Director at the Jobs Foundation. 5:42 is the time. I'm going to bring you some news that is being reported by the BBC regarding one of the people who was accidentally released from HMP Wandsworth. This is William Smith, who was sentenced to 45 months in prison for fraud at Croydon Crown Court, only for the same day to have been released from prison. The BBC is saying that it understands that William Smith, Billy, as police say his name, was released as a result of a clerical error at the court level. He was given a custodial sentence, 45 months. This sums it up. The BBC says he was given a custodial sentence, but it was entered in the computer system as a suspended sentence. This was spotted and corrected by the court, but the correction was sent to the wrong person. Now, at this point, it would be genuinely unfair of me, and not becoming of the seriousness of these things, to just play the Benny Hill music underneath this. Do you know what I mean? You can hear it now. They entered it wrong in the computer. It meant to be suspended. They spotted it. You put the wrong thing in. Change it to the right one. Change it to the right one. Send it like this into the right. Oh, God, he's out. God almighty. And that's how it goes. That, according to the BBC, we'll wait for further details. Sarah's in Ilford. Sarah.
Hi, Tom. Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, it is quite funny. I was like before I started saying that I don't support Labour, but I do feel like, can we look at how many prisoners were mistakenly or wrongly released when the Conservatives? Because I think you'll find the number's pretty high. It's not. I don't see why we're suddenly so focused on these sort of issues that happen when they probably happen quite a lot.
Sarah, I totally agree with you. Of course, people were accidentally released from prison when the Conservatives were power for a long time. The prison system became worse and worse under the Conservatives, who produced one of the worst policies they ever produced, was around the probation service, complete disgrace, which then had to be unwound. So you're right, yes, people were, but it has gone up quite a lot in the last year. It has increased a lot in the last year. And two, as I was saying earlier, this isn't, it hasn't, well,
I feel like it's a systemic effort by media, by I don't know who, but to really comment out Labour from
okay, well, here are the numbers. So this isn't the media, these are the numbers as reported. The Institute for Government, which is not a party political organisation, my God. The Institute for Government reporting 262 accidental releases in 24-25, up from 115 in the previous year, equating to around 21 accidentally released prisoners each month. So it's up year on year. When Labour came into power, it's gone up. Sarah, the point is not who was in charge when these things were happening. The reason why you're hearing more about this is, one, it's happening more often, but two, it plays into people's sense that the country is falling apart. And that is the problem for them.
I think there's this obsession now with trying to, like, just be very hyperbolic and be very negative about what's happening now. Labour's only been in power for a short amount of time. Like, I don't know if the point is to get rid of them. That's what it feels like day in, day out. I listen to you and other presenters, and there's just so much negativity towards Labour.
But do you not think, Sarah, that it's not negativity towards Labour per se, it's negativity towards whoever's in charge? Because, my word, there is negativity towards the Tories too. It's there is, I'm afraid, an inescapable reality that when it comes to the economy, when it comes to the health service, when it comes to the criminal justice system, when it comes to the police, I tell you what would be an absolute basic requirement is, if you pitch for people's votes saying you're going to change the country for the better, you should have the damnedest idea about how you're going to do it. And Labour did not, and they're being found out. And it's important that they're found out because they knew they didn't have a clue about what they were going to do when they came into power. They just said change.
Well, that's the same old story I've heard from the Conservatives, from Labour. That's been the case. I just think that the way that it's being presented, it just seems like, okay, Labour's terrible, we need to get rid of them, and that's the end of it. And I just think, well, we haven't given them enough chance yet. And yes,
Shall we lighten the tone?
Yo, sexy ladies want war with us, you know they car with us, they not war with us.
Every time I hear this. Dance floor filler and climate activist Mr. Sean Paul on the show in a few moments to highlight what it is his country, Jamaica, needs for its recovery and whether he thinks the COP Climate Summit is actually achieving anything. 5:47, news headlines, Tim Humphrey.
Now to a sex offender who was due to be deported. The father of the Southport attacker says he didn't confront his son when he brought a machete because he was scared he would fly into a rage. It's been confirmed the dog, which killed a 9-month-old boy in Monmouthshire on Sunday, was a registered XL bully. LBC weather, patchy rain in the north and west tonight, dry and clear elsewhere, breezy with a low of 10 degrees.
LBC travel line, Dave Goff on the M25 clockwise. There are queues. One lane is closed between junction 28 for the A12 and junction 29 for Romford because the vehicle has caught fire. There are also queues on the M25 clockwise because a van has broken down after junction 5 for the M26 and one lane is closed. The A20 stays closed going out of town between Frittles Corner and the M25 and Swanley. That's because of an accident. There are severe delays. It is slow in Brentwood on the A12 southbound. The exit slip road to the M25 Brook Street roundabout stays blocked because a car has broken down. There are long delays on the North Circular going out of town. There's a lane closed at the Redbridge roundabout because a van has broken down. And on the Train South Western Railway have delays and cancellations between Wimbledon and Apes.
Coming up at 6 on LBC tonight with Andrew Mann.
Another sex offender released from prison by mistake. Mr. Gray. Plus, after a socialist becomes mayor of New York, capital of capitalism, what does it mean for the left in the West?
Tonight with Andrew Mann from 6. Listen on our free Global Player app or our new LBC app.
It's the last chance to get yourself a ticket for tonight's lotto draw. From the National Lottery, rules and procedures apply. Players must be 18 or over.
Call Tom Swarbrick 0345 6060 973 LBC.
At TfL, we're making tube journeys faster in the future, with signalling improvements underway on the Circle, District, Hammersmith City and Metropolitan lines. And there's also the Elizabeth line, already giving you fast journeys across central London. That is how we're making the greener way to travel brighter for everyone. Search TfL improvement. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters. Elizabeth line is fast compared to other TfL modes. Greener than total estimated petrol and diesel car emissions.
Have you ever wondered what a sandwich sounds like? Not much to it, is there? Unless, of course, it's a Walker's sandwich. That is good. Now that's what a sarnie should sound like. Go all crisp in with Walker's. Delicious.
Managing our business is a big task. To then stay on top of the numbers as well, we're only human. That's why the Interact QuickBooks AI-powered platform supports your business growth as the #1 recommended cloud accounting software. Interact QuickBooks. Based on a survey of 506 UK accounting professionals, verify at QuickBooks.co.uk/verify.
Do you ever feel like getting back into a duvet in the middle of the day? Ferroclothing is a great tasting liquid formula with iron, which contributes to the reduction of tiredness and fatigue and the formation of hemoglobin. Ferroclothing from Vitibiotics at Boots, pharmacies and vitibiotics.com.
At TfL, we're helping make roads safer. We're continuing to roll out lower speed limits because 20 miles per hour roads have already seen 24% fewer collisions causing death or serious injury. We're also improving junctions to help keep you safe and improving visibility for bus drivers with new rear mirror cameras. Search TfL Improvement Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters. Comparison of collisions data before and after implementation of 20 miles per hour speed limit.
At Amazon, over 50% of deliveries now come with less packaging or with no added packaging at all. It's a difference you'll notice on your doorstep, where you chat with friends, where your neighbour's daughter practices guitar, and where we deliver your new noise-cancelling headphones in the manufacturer's packaging. Ah, much better. Reduced packaging costs. We're delivering change where it matters, on your doorstep, based on 2024 UK and EU Amazon packaging data.
This is LBC. Message Tom Swarbrick on WhatsApp now on 0345 6060 973.
5:52. If you go to my Instagram,
lại kêu là chè cái gì quên. Iya. Dari hari ni. Gimana nih kok kamera ini? Baru di default. Hai. Não vai inaweza. Hai. Yaani bwana yo. Vai ba yo. Vai ba yo. Juro. Ai! Kamera 0 lain nzuri 1 yes naanza gari bwana. Wah, hiyo gari haiwezi enda hiyo.
Unajua hiyo ya kuamka haraka. Ile kamera 0 control F9 kwa juu. Unaambia kama rasio ulianguka.
Sasa mafuta ikiharibika mwenyewe atapata nini?
Barabara lakini customer nimeuma kona ile kuuma kona ikapiga kona ikakanyaga kama ikakanyaga na mawe moja nikairudisha hivi na gari na nikairudisha hivi. Ai, nikairudisha hivi imelala kwa unajua yake mali imeingia wewe. Hapo bila breakdown yeye unaona. Hapo bila breakdown. Bila breakdown yeye. kusema hivyo. Lazima kuna mahali miguu imeinuka. Lazima kuna mahali miguu imeinuka. Jana ni speed ya 100 kwanza. Malizane na hii kona. Ndio basi nikienda garage customer salama. Mimi hapa nimeingia kwa overtake. Nilianguka mpaka redio ikanyamaza. Sasa redio ilinyamaza bana. Ndio, ndio kitambo. Ndio, kitambo wanawasiali kwa nadhani hao ni anka wanakuanga hapo ndani ya TV. Nilipata wanakuanga hapo ndani. Hapa unapiga break unasikia gari ya tena. Na bamba. Sasa unadhani mchezo utakuja. Ndio unataka tusaidia hivi na huko so. Don't say yeah, it over so. God, wait. Breakdown. Content ya siku mbili. Labda niongeze basi 3. Na konvada kwa hapa kadai. Niambie mbele nikoona. Niambie mbele nikoona. Siachi. Toka on foot tafadhali. Toka on foot. Kukuza. Ngangani ikiwa 100. 100 tunaweza manage. Kwanda kwa manage hivi mbona? Siona hapo ikiniambia siko kwa mwema. Na mimi siwezi kufikia. Kwa kijaribu na nimefika kituo cha Zawi. Na polisi haji yao. Na nimeingia. Hapa bwana tena. Na ndio kwanza hapa mali niko hata afanye. Hujabebea? Sake hujabebea? Sake hujabebea? Mbona juu nimesema kama hapo niko base sasa. Kuna engine mode. Oh. Sage, ukuje umekona, ingia ukuje kwa mgongo yako. Tokea hapo. Ajambe hapo. Toka hapo basi, mamishe gari. Usitoke. What? Afadhali wewe reasonable. Unajua mimi nimepata nini? Wameniambia damaged.